With us 4 days after being knocked out cold by Charles Conwell in the 10th round and sustaining serious head injuries which required surgery, boxer Patrick Day has passed away, aged just 27. This brings into sharp focus the number of boxing deaths that have occurred quite recently, with 4 boxers dead in just the last 4 months. For more in reaction to this that's poured in from across the world, Sandile, what is the world saying?
Well, this is, let's bring it into context. This is, of course, Patrick Day, young welterweight from New York.
In the prime of his life.
27 years old. As you can see, he was the Continental America's champion. That means he's on the stepping ladder to greater heights in terms of the welterweight division. Obviously, he was knocked out in the 10th round versus Charles Conwell, and that was on the undercard of the Alexander Usyk fight. And that basically gave him serious head injuries. He was taken to hospital, had to be operated on just to relieve the pressure on the brain in terms of the bleeding. And this is what boxing is coming to terms with. Maxim Dadashev, Hugo Santillan, Boris Stanchev, and now Patrick Day. 4 young boxers in the prime of their careers, all horribly lost to us in terms of their boxing careers and just in terms of them being young people out there in the world. And this is what we found on Twitter. Kevin Mitchell Esquire, the saddest news about Patrick Day, fine boxer and, of course, an even better human being. According to those who knew him, 4th round death or the 4th ring death in 4 months alongside Boris Stanchev, Hugo Santillan, Maxim Dadashev. Grim times for boxing, as you can understand.
I saw an interview being done with Patrick Day's trainer, Joe Higgins, earlier, and he was quoted saying that, "I feel like I'm responsible, like I let him down." Because, of course, the attention in various sports where knocks to the head are prevalent. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of focus on the sports and what they're doing to try and prevent those kinds of injuries from happening. But with boxing, I mean, the aim of the game is to knock somebody out.
And the problem that you find with boxing is that they use very heavy gloves. If you compare that to something like MMA, for example, the UFC, people are very familiar with the UFC. They use very thin and very light gloves. So if a guy catches you, he's not going to repeatedly catch you. So it's basically, I was speaking to one of my producers off air earlier in the day. He was saying it's like taking a hammer and just wrapping it up in maybe a blanket or something and repeatedly hitting a person over the head. Now, the person's not going to get knocked out by the 1st blow, the 3rd blow, the 10th blow. But because of that accumulative effect, something is going to happen. Whereas in MMA, because of the thinness and the lightness of the gloves, the person catches you, they're going to catch you first time, and that's it.
And tell me, in terms of MMA, the referee steps in immediately and stops the fight when there's any of that kind of thing going on?
Not especially. If a person knocks you down, the referee's not going to come to your assistance. He'll only come to your assistance if you're unable to defend yourself like a normal human being. So if your arms go limp and your legs aren't up, then he's going to step in.
So not ideal either.
But the difference being the weight of the gloves.
Yeah.
And I think this is where boxing is getting it wrong. This is Carrie Newhouse. She reckons nobody should die during a sport for entertainment. Just in the past 2 years, we've lost these men in the boxing ring. And she mentions 6 people. Now, we've heard about Patrick Day, Dadashev, Stanchev, and of course, Santillan. She also mentions Christian Daggio and Scott Westgarth. So the numbers are just stacking up for boxing. And this is what the big dogs had to say. Eddie Alvarez, of course, he's former MMA welterweight champion. Patrick Day's death has got me all messed up. I followed him on Instagram and observed his training from the outside. His message leading up to his death was to live fully, and he will. Thank you, Pat. This is Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Our deepest condolences to the family, friends, and team of Patrick Day. Rest in peace, Pat. And this is, of course, Carl Frampton, MBE. Another tragic day in our beloved sport. R.I.P. Patrick Day.
So dark days indeed for such a popular sport across the world, and especially here in South Africa as well. Sandile, thank you so much for that update.